Hey everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Wealth Unscripted, a pod by Mo. Today we're going to be talking about ownership. Hashtag ownership over everything, because honestly speaking, again, if you don't own, you're not part of the conversation. If you're not a part of the conversation, you can't be part of the change. This is how I see it, right? And this is outside of just your own individual. I own a home, I feel good about it. And the reason why I'm trying to think a little bit higher level for this episode is because there's so much conversation around what is affordable, what is accessible. Alphabet boys and girls have come up with another term for you guys, attainable. So I'm always just thinking, where are these people coming up with these magical, things that they call out, right? Like in all these definitions and all of that. So we're going to get into all of that today. What do they say? Like, subscribe, all the things, leave a rating, download the episode, all of that. If you haven't done that yet, please do, just so I know that, this is making sense. This is the kind of content you want, and this is the kind of format you want it at. So, right, we're going to get into it now. And I'm super excited because the producer
yes, that's
of
me.
This show has come to the front of the camera today because IRL, where she gets her real money from, but we're going to start getting monetized soon, amen? Okay, but where she gets her real money from is she works as a planner at a pretty prestigious firm. Don't want to talk about it until she gives me permission, but maybe she'll drop it on her own. But basically, any of those condos you're seeing in Durham, Vaughan, all those parking lots that are about to become condos is her. So if you got beef, first of all, go to her. But
I'm not the developer, but I am part of the process of getting homes built.
Yeah, and a big part of the process, because when it comes to planners, they're the one that basically say, this is how we interpret the zoning bylaw. This is what we say this land can be used for this, that, and the third. This is, the person who says, we're going to go up to 100 million floors, or we're only going to go to, 50, right? So these are the people who, they have a little bit of the key. Right? So I have her here today because, of course, as a planner, you have to see what the government is doing. You also have to see on the policy side. And I just wanted us to dead the conversation. I'm not even going to lie. I'm starting with this because I really want us to dead the conversation about what is affordable, what is accessible, what is attainable, right? And then once we have satisfied, maybe do a little bit of, venting anger talk. Once we have satisfied and we know what we're really working with, then we can really get into the come to Jesus moment of how do I make sure, that I can own despite whatever, they're doing up top in the ivory towers. So that was a mouthful. Talk to me. Talk to us, Chidima.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me on the podcast, in front of the camera. It's been amazing, producing, seeing this podcast come together. So thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome.
And have this conversation. So like Mo said, I am a land use planner, also community planner. So a lot of what that means is I kind of talk to people about what can be done on a plot of land.
Right.
So simple terms, like when you have a piece of land, the government most likely has already zoned it out to be for something. So either they've said, on this land, we're going to have a residential house, or they've said, on this land, we're going to have a commercial office.
Right.
Or they've said, on this land, we're going to have an industrial warehouse of some sort.
Right.
So a lot of what I deal with is a lot of the land in Toronto right now is zoned for either commercial, industrial, or for low density housing, so single family homes,
mansions, basically.
And for all these condos to be able to be built, a lot of these developers have to go through the process of saying, hey, city, can you change the zoning to go from only allowing one single family home or two or three, whatever, to permit a 50-story, 800 unit,
which is mad expensive and takes a lot of time. So the jump, that's why prices are high. But
so it takes a process. Honestly, I think I've seen it from, depending on the complexity of a project, it can take 1 to 3, sometimes 4 years to actually get something zoned. I'm working on a project right now. They first submitted their application to the city of Toronto in 2005. We're in 2023. It's still not approved, but that was not because of the city. You know, it changed hands. The plans changed. They wanted to do townhouses, then they went to condo. Like, it kind of changed. So that just gives you an idea of why sometimes people are like, you guys are building forever. Things are being done behind the scenes that are like so complex. Like before, we talk about this all the time. Before a condo can get put up, once they even have their like zoning change, so many studies have to be done. We have to see a noise study, because
shadow study.
Because a lot of you, especially for residents, you don't want to be in your house and then especially if you're in an airport area, you're hearing noises all the time, or if you're by train. So noise studies have to be done. They have to make sure it's compatible with the surround. Like, so much goes into it. And being, you know, like a student of the field, I respect it. And I think that it is, it's an important process, but I do think that there are ways to cut it down to get homes built faster.
So how does all of that then affect whether a property, when it does get delivered, can be affordable, is accessible or attainable, or even, again, before we even deep down into that, like, define those terms for us.
So, so based on like the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corp, their definition for what affordable is, and this is my favorite definition, is when a household or an individual spends no more than 30% of their before tax income. So if you're making $2,000 a month, you should only be spending 30% of that. If you're, you know, whatever you make, you should really only be spending 30% of that on housing. But that just is not happening.
Sorry, what year did they update this benchmark? Like, number one.
The reason it's my favorite, because I still think when we look at people's personal financing and how you allocate your money, I don't think you should be spending more than like 50% of your money a month on housing.
Okay, I respect the fact that you said that. It's 30% on paper. In reality, though, if you gotta adjust, know that you have to adjust up to a certain point, because then we get into the conversation of house poverty and things like that, which we'll also cover. So I like that. Also, just segue or small tangent. The fact that you said I have a favorite definition of a term is peak nerd energy, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's my favorite definition, because
that's accessible.
Yeah, that's affordable. Yeah, so that's affordability according to Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corp. Yeah. When we get to the city of Toronto, because we know that is just not possible in the city of Toronto at all.
Or Ontario. Yes,
or the entire province of Ontario. You know, for listeners around the world, our province is equivalent to your states if you're in the U.S. Okay, that's not possible in Ontario at all.
That's a producer note too, because I would never think to say that. But let me stop interrupting you.
You gotta add that in. So yeah, when we get to the city of Toronto, their definition is anything that is sold or rented at below the average market rate. That's just what it is. So
if market rate is $3,300 for a 2-bedroom, but your landlord is kind of gives you at $3,250, that's affordable. Right. Y'all wilding too much. I hate it.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, so by how much? By how much is it going to be below average market rate for us to now say, good job, this is affordable? Isn't really defined. And then we get into, so there's a new term now, because again, I guess they're noticing that affordability is really like affordable for who? Now we have a new one coming out, a new word that's kind of been put out by the provincial government through their policy, attainable housing. This hasn't really been clearly defined yet. They're still kind of working out, like, because I think the idea is, okay, we're saying affordable, but are people actually able to attain these affordable houses? But they're still working out the kinks on that definition.
Heavy eye roll.
Yeah, and I'm working on a project right now where they're telling the developer to define attainable housing for their project.
Which you can't say somebody is the problem and then tell them. It's like you're giving me my own get out of jail free card, because I'm not gonna lie to you. If I'm a developer, you're telling me to define attainable, that's gonna come down strictly to what is my cost to build, right? If I'm gonna be kind to you and shave off any part of my margin, what is that going to be? Okay, I'm shaving off 0.5% of my margin. Therefore, it's attainable. Because let's not forget, in the development process, there's so many contingencies. Because you have a 4 or 5 year build, right? So one of my favorite, lessons when I was working at Infrastructure Ontario was when they said, construction is actually a human being. Construction is a live process. Like, literally anything at any time can happen. And you know this from developers who started building before COVID. Supply chain issues hit. All of a sudden, cost to build went from $250 per square foot to $325 per square foot. Yeah. Like, where are they going to get that money from? You understand me? So, anyways,
So those are sort of the definitions that we're working with now, you know, as like, you know, the technocrats that are reading all and trying to understand this to be able to tell developers, like, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. Another thing, I guess, another definition I'll add quickly is what's called inclusionary housing or inclusionary zoning.
Yo, so, when I said alphabet boys and girls, now you know why. Talk to me. What is inclusionary now?
So this is something that the provincial government, the government of Ontario has passed this, and then now they've set it up to each municipality, like each city, to kind of define it at a lower level.
Okay, so based on like the demographics in your own city.
And the demand and all of that.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, and I like that.
I'm not too mad at that.
Exactly.
Actually.
So what the provincial government has said is inclusionary housing is where the government will demand that a developer puts a certain percentage of your units on your project to be affordable housing, to be sold at below market rate. Okay.
But how far below market, I guess, a bit to discretion.
Exactly. Okay. And then I know the number that was kind of like put out there by the province, and I think what Toronto is studying, I don't know if Toronto has officially passed this yet. I think they may have, I'm not sure, but I think it was 25%. So if a condo developer has like 800 units, then 25% of that would be put at below market rate. So that's inclusionary housing. That's kind of a way that the government's like, okay, you know, affordability is a real issue. Let's see if we can use that.
Okay. So now I want us to come down to dollars and cents, right? Because we're at this, you know, qualitative level, you know, terms, definitions, all of those things, right? We're at that level. As a normal human being now, like I want to buy a house.
Yeah.
Right. I want to buy a house. Like, I know you should be asking me this, but I just want to see how these terms move from paper, right, to our bank accounts, to our pre-approvals, to maybe even before that, how they move to even just what to buy, like, and maybe in the resale side, which is properties that already exist, maybe in that side, look, the thing has been built. I don't really know how we can affect affordability in already existing property. Right? And I know that there are a couple of laws now that are being passed through the system. And actually, one of them, I think it's Bill C-23, has been passed through.
Oh, yeah.
Which allows you to basically put up to 3 dwelling units without any questions asked.
Yeah,
right?
as of right. Yeah.
As of right, you can put, you know, a laneway unit or convert your property, you know, to a certain extent. Yeah. So that exists. Yeah. But I think beyond that, for properties that already exist, it's going to be really, really difficult to do that. Because am I going to tear down the house? You see what I mean? And then somehow increase the density. It gets way more expensive. Yeah. So I feel like these laws can only really impact how I'm seeing it, the pre-construction space. But talk to me. How do you work that in your...
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is for the... Like, a lot of the policies now, I feel like Toronto or Ontario is kind of attacking it right now, late to the game. So you're right. It will affect mostly, like, things that are being built now, things that are... kind of in the system that are being approved, people are talking with the city. Those are where you're really going to see a lot of these changes, especially for inclusionary like housing, those percentage. Another thing I'm seeing now is that affordable housing isn't just like, oh, like cities and me, we're not just looking at developers like, so what about affordable housing? It's like, no, if you don't have affordable housing units in this project, the city may not approve
power
it.
To the people.
Yeah, you know, so there's some developers where it's like they say they want, like they'll come and they'll be like, yeah, you know, we're really excited. It's not just going to be condos. We promise we're going to put a community center for the community. We're going to put affordable units. You know, we're even going to put seniors housing for seniors that want to downsize.
They're just calling everything and just throwing it all. Like, I just want the application to pass.
And then when it gets to like, okay, I'm writing my report to be sent to the city. Now it's like, oh, well, okay, well, we wouldn't tell them how much we want to charge those affordable housing units. Maybe don't put affordable so they don't hold us to it. It's like, no, you need to have these conversations because the city is going to be looking for these things. Right. And also because the city's looking for it and the residents of the area that you're putting the condo are also asking the city for it as well, right? So I think that's where I'm seeing it more now is like affordable housing isn't just like oh, will it? It's like, no, put this in. Right. I think and then of course the province is also saying that they have this a goal, so 1.5 million houses to be built by 2031. We're in 2023 at the time that people are going to be listening to this episode when it comes out. So it's like, okay, that's about 7 years to now build, and that goal came, I think, last year, to now build 1.5 million homes. So I think that will also help add into the supply, like encouraging developers to put out affordable housing, but also incentivizing them. Like, we're in a capitalist society, you need to give developers something for them to say, okay, let me put this unit at, you know, that below market cost.
All right, so I want us all to take a breather.
Yeah.
Because even me working in the industry, in various levels of the industry, and I'm closing my eyes, not for effect, but like truly, I want to just sit with the information for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when I just see how all of this affects everything, I definitely now, if I'm going to empathize with people who aren't in the market, or people who even maybe have one or thinking to get 2 or 3, I definitely now, like, just professional hat aside, as a human, it's hard out here in these streets.
It is really hard. It is really hard. I'm literally looking at a project right now, and sorry to, like, go back to this, and this, it's a developer, so it's just her, and she's looking for a development partner. It's gonna be a stunning project when it's done. It's in Scarborough, Don Mills area. Not say too much. It's gonna be big condo units, and a couple of townhouses, beautiful. And her worry is, I don't know if I find a development partner for this, they're gonna tell me that the condo sizes are too big and I should make them smaller to meet what the market is saying. Or I don't know if, like, this is then gonna have to be sold as luxury to a certain demographic.
When that's not the point.
But that's not even
and
the need.
Even fit, exactly.
Yeah.
That's not the point. That's not the need, because it doesn't fit the society or the community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, because I think subtly we're even now starting to get into that displacement / gentrification conversation. If we start to title things luxury, which means that we're signaling a certain price point. Which, you know, again, that's its own podcast. That's not even its own episode.
Literally.
Right? So, okay. So let's bring it down to our Wealth Simple account and our dollars and cents, and where we're saving our FHSA account, and where we're, you know, getting equity for a property. Let's bring it down to, like, our everyday dollars and cents. It's really sounding like basically most people need to focus on the pre-construction area.
Yeah. I would say focus on pre-construction.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what is going to be coming in the funnel is where a lot of, because right now, like, I swear every day I look at my my Apple, and I'm in the office, I'm working, and they're like, oh, another announcement has been made about housing. Oh, they just took off GST tax.
The government is active. Like, they're just dropping stuff. Now, is it effective stuff? We don't know, but they seem
I think it's because elections, because people are really sounding like affordability.
Just when I was about to clap for them, they're like, nah, girl, it's elections.
I think it's elections. I think people are really complaining about affordability. People have been threatening to leave Toronto and go to Edmonton. People are leaving. People are leaving. People are struggling where rent is increasing. People can't afford to live in the city that they love. So I think now they're like, okay, let's start doing things. So now it's like, okay, we'll remove tax if developers are doing only rent build development. And that's what they need. Like, we need to start incentivizing these things, because if you don't incentivize it, developers are business owners. They want a profit at the end of the day, right? So if you don't incentivize them to do these things, it's not going to be done. Sorry. Like,
personally, I feel like the government just needs to enter, and any government officials listening to this, call me for consultancy, because I actually do have a degree in this. We need to